Welcome to the Ultimate Gamer Podcast, a show that features conversations with the trailblazers, thought leaders, decision makers, and investors who are defining the gaming and esports space. On the Ultimate Gamer Podcast, we take a journey into this dynamic industry and start to decode and reveal who and what's making news. It's about connecting, and it's about sharing the stories and vision of the people who make gaming and esports a global phenomenon. And now, please welcome your host, student of the game and connected to the esports community, Tommy Knapp.
What's up, everyone? I'm Tommy Knapp, and this is an all-new episode of the All About the Game podcast presented by the Ultimate Gamer. On today's show, I have a conversation with Marcus Howard, president of the Tampa Association of Gaming, member of the Blockchain Gaming Alliance, and Esports Adviser at Game Credits. In each of his positions, he leads and supports brand engagement and development in esports. Marcus is exceptionally knowledgeable about the underpinnings of cryptocurrencies and is committed to promoting blockchain in the gaming industry. He has over a decade of strategic experience building startups across multiple industries and is currently a leader in the Tampa esports scene. As president of TAG, he works to promote and grow the gaming industry in the Tampa Bay area through education and events. When we sat down to talk, Marcus and I discussed the esports initiatives with Junior Achievement and the universities he is working with in the Tampa Bay area. By the way, he totally reminds me of a superhero. He shared a well-conceived concept of introducing intramural esports as a means of engaging non-collegiate gamers to university competitions. And inevitably, our conversation evolved to the topic of blockchain, which Marcus broke down to me with incredible clarity and efficiency. And he concluded with his very well-informed opinion about his outlook for blockchain in gaming moving forward. Please join me now for my conversation with Marcus Blockchain Howard.
Yeah, so the drive over was good, rain.
Yeah. You know, I usually go about 80 because I just got a new car and I have to get updated tag on it. The sticker for the tag.
Oh, yeah, you got to be smart, man.
Yeah, so I don't get pulled over.
Yeah, it's funny. I had Rick Daniels on yesterday. He's the CEO of Ghost Punch.
Okay.
And he was talking about doing alligator calls. Like, he actually, and I was like, why would you want to do an alligator call, man? Like, I think you don't want alligators coming near you.
Yeah.
Right? You want them going the other direction. Yeah. So tell me a little bit about what's going on over in Tampa, like right now. I mean, I know you've lived over in Tampa for a while.
Yeah, about 6 years. Moved down here in 2013.
So where are you from originally?
Originally from right outside of Atlanta in Rockdale County. When the Olympics came to Atlanta, the International Horse Park is in Conyers. That's where I grew up.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, Atlanta's doing a lot right now as far as esports and gaming goes.
Yeah, they're the number one market in the country. You know, they've got the Atlanta.
So how do they determine that? Like, where did you read that or see that, or is that like one of those Newzoo things, or like how do we know like somebody's the number one?
They have a set of metrics that they track, and I don't have them right off the top of my head, but I'll send it over to you. It's like internet and number of live events. It's like 3 or 4 things, and they take numbers, they rank, and then Atlanta ended up being
and I have no doubt, and I wonder who number 2 and number 3 is, because I always use Atlanta as kind of like an example of, I think that they're a private-public partnership that's doing it really well, right? Like the state of Georgia's gotten behind it, everything that, you know, we talked about it earlier when we were off camera with Todd Harris and Allie and Ryan and all those guys are doing is amazing, and you're seeing them constantly in the space. I kind of say Atlanta's in the top 3. I throw Dallas and LA in there, and I don't know if that's fair. That's just a general statement from me.
Yeah.
But I look at Tampa and like South Florida. I look at us as like areas that really are starting to, I think, push the envelope a little bit.
Yeah, I think the other ones in the top 5. It's Orlando is in number 5.
Yeah, Orlando.
Top 5. LA, obviously, and I think Seattle.
I was going to say Seattle too, but and maybe it's just because we're not up in the Pac West, it's so far away from us. I just don't see as much, and maybe I'm not connected as much in Seattle. But I do hear that too. I hear that Seattle's got a pretty good scene up there. And I would think Philly, New York too, because you see Philly a lot now with Comcast up there and the Philly Fusion and a lot of stuff that's going on there.
You know, Seattle, they have the International there every year, and it like sells out in 45 minutes. The entire stadium. So I think that helps.
When is that supposed to happen again? Because again, that's one of those big events that probably isn't going to happen.
I don't know. Yeah, your guess is as good as mine.
Yeah. So 2013. Before that, you're in Atlanta. Walk us through like a little bit of your history of gaming. Like, did you grow up a gamer, and how did you get into esports?
Well, I got Super Mario Brothers 3.
Nice, you got it in your pocket. I love it,
for
dude.
Christmas when I was 6. My twin brother, and my sister.
That's awesome. Do you always have that?
I always have it on me.
Do
it's
you?
like what is it? Visa, you never
Right. Never leave home without it.
Yeah.
That's awesome, man, because it's such a great conversation starter.
Yeah, so I got that when I was 6 for Christmas. I remember walking down the hallway at Christmas and hearing the music and then seeing the light from the TV castle on the wall.
Yeah.
And my brother and I and my sister just fell in love with video games. You know, it's so engaging. It's like no other kind of media in how immersive it is.
Yeah.
And from there, we got inspired to pursue technology careers. My brother and I actually started building our first video game on the TI 83 Plus graphing calculator.
Okay. On a calculator.
A calculator. Yeah.
How do you do that? Like, I don't.
Yeah, it's written in code. That's when we discovered the connection between video games and code.
Right.
Right? Because games are apps just like Facebook and Netflix. It's all written in code. Those games on that calculator were made with Visual Basic Script.
Okay.
So it just controls the different, the animations and all the variables that make the game happen.
But when I'm thinking about a calculator, is it a calculator that doesn't just have like numbers on the face and then just like a little digital printout? Is it more than that?
It's an advanced calculator.
Okay.
Yeah, so you need it for calculus.
Okay.
So that was the reason that we had it was for
Okay.
school, but when we found out you could put video games on it, we were using it like a Game Boy. And then we taught everyone else in class how to do that. Our trigonometry teacher didn't appreciate that. So when everyone in class was at lunch, she went table to table and deleted everyone's memory to wipe our games.
What?
Which destroyed the game we were building.
So how old were you when this happened?
That was 15.
15.
Yeah. So then fast forward 10 years, my brother and I get technology degrees.
Why are you fast forwarding 10 years though, man?
Well,
did you just you stopped gaming for 10 years?
Oh, no. We actually, my freshman year, I actually skipped an entire week of school when Halo 2 came out.
Okay.
We took our Xbox down to the community lobby for the dorm, plugged it in the TV, and skipped an entire week of school to beat the game in 1 week.
Wow. How many, like you and who, how many people?
Me, my brother, my roommate, his roommate. I mean, we just got a group of people, and we all just skipped
What
school
about
for a
mom's
week.
dad? Like, what did mom and dad say?
They thought we weren't using our time appropriately, but I think in hindsight, now that I'm building a business in the gaming industry, it was a good investment.
Right.
I joke, if I had known that you could build a successful career in gaming when I graduated high school, probably wouldn't have gone to college.
Yeah.
College is great, but for what I'm doing now, I could have done more for myself as an entrepreneur.
It's really interesting you say that because I just had a conversation yesterday, and I don't know if you know Chris Toussaint, but Chris started getting into gaming when he was in high school, and at 14 he was already working in the front office. I think he was 14 or 15 when he started working for Misfits Gaming and the Magic Gaming. And I asked him, like, same thing that you're saying. When you look at Steve Jobs and you look at Bill Gates, they left college, right? They left college because of their career.
Right.
He didn't even go through. I mean, he got his degree, his diploma at high school. But he was going into the corporate world and becoming a businessman at 14, 15, 16 years old. So I can see what you're saying. Like, if you knew at that time you were already a big gamer, you're already into sports, if you knew it was a career opportunity, you might have just gone that path. But you didn't, right? You did go to school.
Yeah.
Yeah,
this was really helpful. And actually, like 6 months ago, one of my classmates from from high school, told me that he actually was on the professional circuit for Halo. I didn't even know that existed when I was in high school.
Right.
Because my parents also told me there was no future in playing video games.
Right.
And,
were you pretty good then?
I wasn't competitive.
No, okay.
But nothing against them. That's just when they grew up in that time, video games didn't exist, right? And then it didn't grow. It wasn't a $152 billion industry. That's larger than the film and music industries combined, larger than the entire sports industry, growing 10% year over year. That's general gaming. I mean, esports is obviously growing more than that, but that didn't exist when they grew up. So they're just sharing to me what worked for them.
Right.
So I appreciate that. But now when I talk to kids, I say you can go to college, but there are other definitions of success outside of college.
Sure.
Military, trades, esports, and gaming.
Yeah. And so that education, when you're talking about your parents and everything, them not knowing about the industry, right? Do you feel right now that that's still something, because I do, that we're still educating people that don't look at gaming so much like it is a game that somebody's playing alone by themselves, right? Look at it as the entertainment industry. Because you would find, I don't think you'd find many people that wouldn't say that the film and TV industry is a major industry. The music industry is a major industry. Professional sports is a major industry, and they would understand that there's opportunity there. Even if you're not a professional musician or a professional athlete, you could still get into that. Gaming, when you say gaming, I still think a lot of people, right, don't understand that it's 152 billion or whatever. Because again, I've read places 160 billion, 180 billion, whatever it is.
Right, it's high.
100. It's like you said, it's bigger than all those other industries.
Yeah.
So why do people not understand? So I still think it's an education process, and we talked a little bit about that before. What do you do kind of in that space? And I still, I'm jumping around a little bit, but I want you to go through your history. But I want us to think about what you're doing in the education space to educate parents, to educate kids about what is going on in the space and what the opportunities are.
Great question, and that's what we do with the Tampa Association of Gaming. You know, I'm also the president of that nonprofit, and our mission is to grow both the gaming industry and STEAM youth programs in the Tampa Bay region. And it's about educating parents that there is professional success in video games. You know, there's 88 careers just on the esports side. That doesn't even include actually building the game and the business around it.
88 careers.
Yeah, between broadcasting and
writing.
writing.
I love that you said that because I've never had a number, and I'm always like, you know, there's a lot of opportunities. So you say legit like 88, like you could go somewhere and find, okay, esports, boom, there's 88 careers.
Yeah, and I didn't create this graphic, so I have to give credit to Leslie Fitzsimmons from Beasley Media Group. She got it from somebody at one of the universities up in Michigan or Northeast, and so I'll send it to you, but it just maps it out. It says esports, and then it says like marketing and business development and professional services, and then it maps out a grid with 88 different areas where you can build a career in the gaming industry as a professional.
That's super powerful. I'd love it if you shared that with me, and I think that's one of the things like you and I should be, you know, posting out to the world so that they understand. Because when parents start to see that and they're like, oh yeah, I could see being a graphic designer, I could see being this, then it starts. That's us creating that understanding, right? And educating them. Yeah.
So what we're doing locally is just educating different parents. My brother and I last year partnered with Junior Achievement at Tampa Bay.
Nice.
So they had a STEAM program. We brought a game development course to it, where we used video games to teach kids how to build games.
Yeah.
Because that's how they engage with educational content or content in general, right? That's how they consume content. So use that medium as an education tool.
100%.
So it taught them how to make games, which teaches them how to code, right? Because I told you games are made with code.
Right.
It also teaches them to be small business owners, because independent game studios, or game studios as a whole, are all businesses.
Yep.
So now they have their own small business that they can nurture and a concept that they can create and grow into something that is a business opportunity and professional development opportunity in the future.
Yeah. Was that through TAG?
That wasn't through TAG, but the thing that we're doing at the Super Bowl next year will be with TAG as an evolution of that concept.
Okay.
So it's going to be a 1 or 2 day event where it's equal parts like Dream Hack Entertainment, like you have here, right? Free to play area, the professional tournaments, et cetera, but also teaching kids, again, how to make games, how to write basic code, how to make animations, how to be a streamer, how to be a competitive gamer, so that when they leave the event, they've been entertained in the short term and they have knowledge to take with them in the long term.
Right. What's the technology behind that? Who are the teachers, the professors? So, you know, if you look at Unreal Engine or you look at C++ or Pascal, you look at all this coding, right? Mm-hmm. And you said that you had done that with Junior Achievement. Mm-hmm. What was actually implemented? Like how did you do that with Junior Achievement? And then how many kids actually took it? And when they left, did they really feel like, wow, I do have the introduction kind of to coding and to game development?
Great question. So we used free tools because we know that Junior Achievement had a modest budget to begin with.
Right.
And this was a pilot program for them. So there were 30 students in the class.
Wow, great.
I would say about 85-90% were minorities. So generally it was for at-risk students, which happened to include a large segment of minorities. Yeah. And we use free software. One of them is Code Combat.
Okay.
And it kind of plays like a side-scrolling 2D version of World of Warcraft.
Okay.
But instead of you using the controller to move your character, you have to type in a line of code that says, Tommy, walk left 4 spaces.
Okay.
And you build that line by line, and then it shows that you, as the editor goes through each line, on the right side, on the left side shows the game with the character moving. So you can instantly connect the thing you did with the result that it created.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Were you the professor on that, or who's
My brother and
that?
I both taught that. Okay. So it was interesting because, you know, he lives in Georgia, so he had to fly down here for that time, and we had to mix it up between in-person and remote, because I still have my day job, right? I'm bootstrapping my own company until we close our seed round. Still going to be bootstrapping after that, but we have to balance our full-time job commitments with growing our passion project, which is educating kids in STEAM and building the gaming ecosystem. Yeah. But we used a couple of in-person events, and then again the rest of it was just online. Right. So we would use like Skype or Google Meets, Google Hangouts to deliver the content virtually.
Okay. And one of the things you talked about was serving underserved communities and creating, and so that's one of the big areas that we're talking about these days, right? Creating access.
Right.
So was that a plan at that time right now? And then what other things are you doing to kind of continue doing that? Because it's amazing. You know, it's so great what you're doing. And as we said, 30 kids go to that program, 30 kids walk away having a new skill, you know, that they can then take out to the real world. So when you did that, like where are you going now with, and it sounds to me like you're saying that's a grassroots initiative to create access. What other things are you guys doing? You've got the Super Bowl coming up, and I want you to talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah.
But is there anything else, like for instance, this summer that you're doing with Junior Achievement or anywhere else in the Tampa area?
We couldn't get a line for Junior Achievement this summer just because COVID hit. This was an in-person experience, and they reached out to us, but everything was happening so fast we couldn't make that land.
Okay.
But we will continue to support them and that program and grow it and develop it there. We wanted to create it as a blueprint so we can scale it across Junior Achievement nationwide,
right,
because there's need for that type of programming experience nationwide. If you look, I think the statistic is only 2.2% of black males are in the STEAM industry.
Okay.
You know, science, technology, engineering, art, mathematics. So while there's a need for all students, there's a particularly important need, immediate need right now for, you know, the black community and particularly black males.
Right.
So that's what we're doing there. I'm also having conversations with people across the country and around the world about how can they bring their resources and make them available to the community. So there's a gentleman I think he's in Nevada. Now I can't think of his name off the top of my head, but he works for a company that provides low-cost computing equipment that has the Minecraft software already loaded onto it.
Beautiful.
So just like we were using Code Combat to teach the code, you can use Minecraft to actually teach kids how to code.
Yeah.
So we want to partner with corporate sponsors to make those very modestly priced laptops available to communities around the country.
Yeah.
Starting here in Tampa Bay because I'm closer there.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great initiative, and Junior Achievement, to me anyway, seems like a fantastic partner. And if you can start to implement that into all of those programs, because it really is about teaching about business and life skills and all of that. So talk about then how you are now looking at the Super Bowl, and I know some of this is probably you're just starting the conversations about this, but get in a little bit deeper about where you're talking about doing this. Super Bowl week, is it going to be the whole week leading up to the Super Bowl? And what kind of events and activations are you guys going to be doing?
We're thinking either just Saturday, the Saturday before the Super Bowl, or the Friday and Saturday, depending on the level of interest we have from the community.
Okay.
And we've got a couple of sites. You know, ideally it would be best to do that in the football stadium where the Super Bowl will be on Sunday. I don't know if that works out logistically because it's a completely different setup.
Yeah.
You know, setup and breakdown. But we have a couple of regional spots where we want to have basically a community-wide event. Instead of it just being Tampa, like the events here were just Miami, and Miami is a large city, right? And include the entire Tampa Bay region. So both Tampa, Clearwater, and St. Pete, so that you can have something for each of the local communities to collectively engage in.
Right.
And then so that maybe just watch parties, it might be smaller activations that also have watch parties for the larger activation.
Yeah.
We just want the entire region to understand that esports is a part of sports and that there are professional, lucrative career opportunities in video games.
Sure. And do you think you'll integrate Madden into that and maybe work with EA at all, or because obviously that's a direct fit with football?
That would be awesome. We worked with Madden at the USF Esports Summit last year. They donated
tell me a little bit about the USC. I was going to ask you about that anyway, so great segue.
Yeah, so Todd Harris came down. He was one of the keynote speakers. You were there. You saw how great it was, and it was really kind of esports 101 for the local community.
Yep.
And as you saw, it was standing room only. A lot of people wanted to learn more about it. And then EA donated a couple of keys for us to use for a Madden tournament and to give away as prizes.
Okay.
So hopefully we can go back to them and say, let's do something bigger because now the the Super Bowl is coming here.
Yeah.
And we want to get more engagement and people understand Madden as an extension of physical, regular sports, traditional sports.
Right.
And use that to kind of say, well, if you understand esports in this context, here are these other games. It's also esports.
Right.
Yeah.
And is USF and our other institutions in the Tampa region really getting behind right at a college level behind esports and gaming right now?
They are. USF just announced that they have a full-blown USF esports traditional program that they're launching that includes both curriculum for the students and a professional team.
Yeah.
I sit on the board for
collegiate team.
Yes,
right.
yes.
But competitive.
Competitive collegiate team, right? Like
Yep.
the step right below professional, right? And I'm on the board for the Esports Summit there, so I help them kind of coordinate speakers and other content around it.
So is that going to be an annual event? Or
it is going to be an annual event.
Okay.
They're planning another one this September, late September.
Great.
Yeah, I think it's going to be more research focused,
Okay.
and how do schools kind of understand how they evolve the student experience to include esports.
Right.
And then I'm also on the Esports Task Force for St. Pete College in the city of St. Pete, but that's still Tampa Bay.
Okay.
And they haven't fully announced all their plans yet, but they're also looking to integrate esports into the student experience.
Sure. When you look at that, when you look at the colleges and universities, what do you suggest or recommend to them? Somebody coming from the industry and having a lot of a history and a background, and they're looking at both, or maybe all three, but on the competitive side, creating a competitive team which is NACE or TESPO or CSL, or, that's along those lines. And then there's club teams, right, which is more just your people that are recreational gamers.
Right. And
then curriculum. Like if you were to talk to somebody and they're like, what do we do? Like, what do we do in esports and gaming? Where would you start with them? Like, what do you think is the most important thing because again, when I'm looking at it right now and building out the stack, we have these pro levels that are all being built out, and now everything's filtering down. So how do we really make these sustainable and impactful at the college level, and then that will then go down into high school, and we know that the high schools are now starting to, build their programs out, and then all the way down to the grassroots level. But you just talked about St. Pete University or
St. Pete College.
St. Pete College.
Yeah.
So what do you tell them because again they have limited resources, they don't want to spend a lot of money, right? They want to do this all. Not I don't say on the cheap, but they just and now of course with COVID and everything that's gone on, everybody's saying wait a second, like we got to be careful. Like, do we want to build out a facility? Do we want to do it online? So I know it's a long-winded question, but what do you think?
I would say out of the three, professional teams, intramural content, or curriculum. Start with curriculum, because curriculum most directly aligns with what the university is already doing really well. Right. And I think colleges, in order to remain relevant in the future, need to embed esports and gaming into the future, like the core of their curriculum. So yes, you're going to have business programs, and you're going to have engineering programs, and you may have legal programs and financial accounting, finance. Make all of those grow from esports and gaming. So use gaming and esports as the context to develop those programs. So how do you build a game as an engineering student? How do you build a business plan as a business major? How do you finance each of the majors? You get where I'm going with that.
Yeah.
And then that way it's more relevant to students. And also make it experiential. When my brother and I were at Georgia Southern, we got invited to be on the strategic planning committee that determines the 10-year goal every 10 years.
Very cool.
And it was between two different concepts. One was effective writing. The other one was experiential learning.
Okay.
And we suggested experiential learning because at the time we were also providing a service learning internship program in partnership with the university, and we saw directly how our students were leaving our program and getting job offers before they graduated.
Right.
This is in 2010 and 11, right after the housing market crash, where a lot of students weren't getting hired.
Right.
Because they had the relevant work experience in addition to their degree.
Right.
So I think if you do that, in addition to doing esports and gaming centric content, you're tapping into your students' core interests.
Right.
And when they're interested, they're going to be more likely to be engaged.
Yeah, I was talking, we mentioned Todd, and Todd's very involved with some programs, I think with Georgia Tech up in Atlanta, but talking about not just theoretical learning, like you're talking about experiential learning, theoretical learning. So yes, we're going to have courses, but we're going to implement or integrate those courses with actual companies that are in the industry locally. So talking about that in Tampa, what's going on in Tampa as far as like different companies that are involved right now in esports and gaming? Down here in South Florida, we've got Alienware and Origin PC in Miami. When you talk about pro teams, we've got the Heat Check and we've got Misfits Gaming. We have Simplicity as well that's up in Boca, and then Ghost Punch is a studio which is out kind of in the west there. So we do have some actual core companies. When we talk Atlanta, I think they have over 100, But in Tampa, because like now a university is looking to build out this curriculum, they're not really sure what to do, but they should really lean on the resources that are there. So aside from yourself, and let's talk more about TAG as well and like how you develop TAG, because that's amazing. And then I think we're going to get into some of the blockchain stuff, your company. So
yeah, for sure. So TAG exists exactly for that reason. We wanted to create organization, an Avengers team, if you will, of different gaming.
An Avengers team.
Yeah, Avengers
team. I love
team,
it, dude. You got the Captain America shirt on.
Exactly, right? Of different gaming and esports companies that could align on the interest of the mission, right? And then support each other, because each of our companies are really complementary. And I'm sure as we scale, we may have some light competition for other companies joining, but it allows us to each support what each other company is doing. And in that regard, we don't have nearly the maturity of a ecosystem that maybe Tampa or even Miami has. That I know of, there's only one major game development studio in the Tampa Bay area, and they don't even publish their address. But what they did do was start on Kickstarter, grow an immense community. They actually did a digital concert with Korn. So I don't know if you saw the stuff with like Marshmallow.
Korn scares the hell out of me, by the way. Their album cover is scary.
They're intense. But they're one of the first They weren't the first one. I think Marshmello was on.
Marshmello, and then Travis Scott.
Yeah, Travis Scott.
Yep.
But they did the same thing with Korn, where it was like a digital concert, like if you were in World
They
of
did
Warcraft.
they did that in Fortnite, or they did
it in their game. Their game is called.
Nice. Yeah,
I can't think about it.
I gotta check it out though. I've never
I'll
seen
send you
that.
the link,
But
yeah.
I talk about the metaverse all the time and what's going on with that, and are we going to see more and more and more of that? Which I think we are.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so by the way, some of the Korn's music, it's just that one image that they have on one of their album covers that always freaks me out. But anyway, I digress.
Yeah, so we don't have a lot of gaming studios, but we do have these companies. So my company is an experiential marketing agency. We meet with businesses, learn about their business goals, explain to them what the gaming industry is and why it matters to them, why it should.
Yep.
Again, it's going to be the kind of the evolution of social media, so the future of how businesses engage with younger audiences. And then we provide to them or recommend to them a group of products and services, hardware and software, to help them meet their business goals.
Okay.
One of those we're developing internally is an intramural esports platform.
Okay.
To facilitate casual gaming.
Yeah.
So you may have like Playverses or these other platforms that focus on professional esports, like varsity esports.
Yep.
Our philosophy is that just like you only have 15 people, USF as an example, 15 people on the varsity basketball team, 50,000 students.
Right.
Outside of those 15 students, everyone else is a spectator, including faculty, staff, and alumni.
Right.
Intramural esports has the same potential as intramural basketball, where you may have hundreds or thousands or tens of thousands of people in a given year facilitate or participate.
Sure.
So that's
But you're only going to have so many at the competitive level.
at the competitive level.
Right.
So it's a feeder, right? It's complementary.
Yeah, of course.
So we have my company that does that. There's another company that's building, they're called Game Drive. They're kind of like LinkedIn for gaming, where you can connect your social media profiles and also your gaming profiles, Xbox Live, et cetera, Steam.
Love it.
And it can combine your professional interests and expertise with your gaming profile so that if Riot Games is looking for a community manager in Miami, they can combine the fact that you live in Miami with your professional work history, with your experience playing the game, and scout you directly, either as a competitive player or a future gaming industry professional.
Okay.
How
old are those guys? Game Drive.
Game Drive, they're early.
Okay.
Yeah, so they're still building the MVP. They should hopefully launch something at the end of this year.
Okay.
They're raising capital if you know anybody interested. There's another company called High Point Gamer. They produce gaming events for athletic celebrities like Tracy McGrady, I think MLB's annual event that they have. I can't think of it off the top of my head, but they've done that. There's Rare Drop, which produces Guardian Con or GCX now in Orlando. They've had between 10,000 plus attendees every year for the last few years.
And they do a very good job at raising money, right?
They do. They raise like $3 million, $4 million for St. Jude.
Yep.
So all of those, and there are some more. There's Lodges Financial, which has the Lodges podcast. You may know Juan Rodriguez.
Okay.
He also provides like financial expertise for gamers and streamers who are winning this money and not knowing what to do with it.
Yeah.
So again, those are all complementary, but that's how we build the ecosystem up.
So that's cool. Do you guys meet regularly? Do you have conversations?
We have a LinkedIn group chat. I can add it to it if you want. We need to. We were trying to meet regularly in person. Right when we started doing that is when COVID hit. So we said let's just stay digital.
Right.
But we want to try to meet on a regular basis so we can make sure we're marching towards our goals.
Sure. And are these people that are at those companies, do you look for a certain level? Is it to have to be a C-level person, an owner, or are you just looking for somebody to represent each one of those companies, to kind of be involved in, discussion? To me, I think it's important, right? I want to do the same thing in South Florida. We're talking about building a coalition. We've got, like I said, those 5 or 6 companies, but we actually have more people that are involved in esports gaming when you go to the universities. It's about doing things like this, having podcasts and discussions, but also doing business panels, maybe doing once a month, jumping on a Zoom, but you've got the leaders in the space that are sharing about what they're doing so that you can kind of work together cohesively, which I think, again, Atlanta has done very well.
They have.
And then we can start make a bigger difference for our local community regionally and then, nationally and globally as well.
Great.
So do you guys have plans on, and I know it's COVID right now, but let's say building out some type of schedule where you do meet once a month or once a quarter or something like that?
Yeah, we were trying to meet bi-weekly, and we did that like twice, and then COVID hit.
Right.
And so we'd love to have people who don't yet own companies but just have a passion for gaming to get involved. We'd like to have people represented from the universities get involved, local media to get involved, the broadcast stations to get involved. That's how this works. That's what Atlanta does very well, is every component of their business ecosystem, from education to government, investors, is involved in making sure esports is successful.
Yeah.
We don't have that here in Florida that I've seen yet. The closest thing is Orlando, and we're trying to shamelessly copy them.
Yeah. No, but that's good, man. It's a good business model, and we've given a lot of love to Atlanta on this podcast already.
Yeah, they're doing a lot of things
rightfully
right.
so. Yeah. So I mean, we're talking about a lot of stuff. Did you go into the Super Bowl? You did talk about some of the stuff that you guys have planned for the Super Bowl.
Right, yeah, so we have Tencent Games is interested, and not interested,
nice.
actually committed to supporting an event there around indie games. My company partnered with them last year. They launched a new program called Games Without Borders, which is a global initiative
That's an amazing initiative.
Provide funding and distribution support to indie developers.
Yep.
And so we were a strategic marketing partner with them, but we're evolving our partnership with their company, and they're going to help us produce kind of a Shark Tank for indie game developers where they can showcase their games, they can compete with feedback from the attendees.
Yeah.
So not only do they get exposure, but they can get some in-kind prizes and a little bit of cash.
Right.
So we're looking for other companies in the gaming industry to support us, because that entire event is designed to support small businesses and the local community, particularly underserved, the minority communities.
And when do you see that happening?
That's going to be that Super Bowl weekend.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
That's
and
gonna be
the
part
goal
of
is to make that either be a annual event here in Tampa Bay,
right.
or a rotating event following the Super Bowl, because every community needs that kind of experience.
Yeah.
Even Atlanta, they do a lot of stuff around entertainment on esports, but not on the other side of it.
Right. And when you talk about indie developers, so I had Rick Daniels on yesterday from Ghost Punch, and they're a developer and they work with some of the AAA publishers and developers. What is an indie developer just like you and me, or like, I mean, I try to get my arms around what's an indie developer, right?
Yeah, that's always an interesting conversation in the space, because there's so many different interpretations of it. My brother and I's definition is anyone who has like financial and creative control over the content they produce.
Okay.
So we pivoted into this experiential marketing company. For 7 years, we built a multimedia search engine exclusively for indie games.
Okay.
And we've worked with one-person teams where they did everything from the animation to the art to the music and the script, to there's a team in Atlanta's always on. Well, there are actually a lot of teams in Atlanta, but this other team in Pennsylvania is called Shell Games.
Okay.
And they're a 100-person team, but they're still indie. They just had multiple games that were successful.
Okay.
Were able to scale their team out. They still have full creative control. Their production values are a little bit higher than your one-person games.
Right.
But they're still indie, right? And so we want to support all games between the one-person teams and the 100-person teams. And nothing against AAA studios, but it has been my experience that some AAA gaming companies sometimes take their loyalty of their gamers and their customers for granted.
Right.
You see games that get rushed. You see things like microtransactions. I rarely see those types of things happen in the indie community, because those indie studios can't afford to basically abandon the trust of their gamers, because they live and die off of that support.
But microtransactions, when you talk about microtransactions, right? Because when you're looking, again, my kids, they play Fortnite, so I'm always referring to Fortnite, but it's a free game to play, but they're a billion-dollar company.
Yep.
Right? And a lot of that. So if you provide the game free and you don't do microtransactions, can't you do microtransactions like the right way so that you don't offend your community? Because my kids don't seem to be offended at all spending money from my pocket on all these different skins and everything else that they have to do on Fortnite.
Yeah, it's funny you say that. My daughter, before she was 1 year old, she bought her first digital currency, which is I talk about blockchain. And
Which I want to get into next. It's gonna be a good segue.
Yeah. And she did that. On my PlayStation 4 controller. I turned the TV off because my wife asked me to go move some furniture real quick.
Right.
So I walked away for not even 2 or 3 minutes, and then later that afternoon, I got an email from Sony that said I spent $10. I told my wife, I said, "What'd you buy on PlayStation Network?" She said nothing. So we looked at the details. It said $10 worth of V-Bucks. I still had the PlayStation on. I just turned the TV off.
Right.
And because my daughter knew how to turn the PlayStation on, because gaming teaches you how to appreciate technology.
Yep.
She turned it on, hit some buttons, even though the TV wasn't on. She bought the V-Bucks, the virtual currency.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dude, I love the way you just said that, by the way. Gaming teaches you to appreciate technology.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. I like that.
Yeah.
That's a good saying. Yeah, so let's get into it, because, again, I told you before, I've looked at this a little bit. When I worked with the Miami Marlins, I've actually done a few of those panels talking about cryptocurrency, talking about blockchain, and I really have not been able to dig in deep and really understand it. So tell me how you got involved in it.
Sure.
I think it's potentially the currency of the future. To me, again, like when you look at just regular money, right, cash money, it's all an agreement. right? It's all an agreement. This dollar bill, or $100 bill or whatever I throw down here, is absolutely meaningless except for you and I agree, and the rest of the world does, that it has value.
Mm-hmm.
So when I look at blockchain, I'm like, that makes sense to me, but it's just about getting everybody to agree the blockchain works. I think it's much safer and more secure based on some of the stuff I know. But how does that become the tipping point where instead of having any more dollars in my pocket, I don't even need them anymore? Everything's either through blockchain or just digital currency.
Yeah. First and foremost, you're right exactly that money is a social contract, right? And so if physical money is a social contract, then digital money is a social contract. And just to be very clear, I don't think that Bitcoin will replace or cryptocurrency will replace physical money. I just think it will be a complement. And in the digital ecosystem, it makes more sense in that space. Like you can't pay for V-Bucks with a dollar bill out of your wallet, right? It just doesn't make sense there.
Right.
So what blockchain it's basically a polished or a fancy version of a database and a loyalty program put together. The difference is that blockchain is decentralized, encrypted, and distributed by default.
Okay.
So the current internet was not designed to be encrypted, decentralized, or distributed.
Okay.
It's a client-server relationship. So if you've ever had your phone go down, like last week the towers went down, different cell towers went down, and your phone service went down because it's a client-server relationship. Your phone is the client, the central tower is the server.
Right.
All the communications have to go to that server, and then it gets sent somewhere else. In that regard, it's kind of distributed, kind of decentralized, but it still depends on that one node, and if it goes down, you can't use your phone, which a lot of people recognized last week. Same thing with Facebook or LinkedIn or Hulu, right? If those servers go down, you depend on them to run the app and get your information.
Correct.
With the blockchain network, each node on the network, if your device is a node, runs the code and stores the data as a shared ledger.
Okay.
So if one device goes down, the information still exists on the other devices, which removes the single point of failure that we see in the example with using your phone or Facebook. Does that make sense?
Yep.
The other thing is that everything is encrypted. Blockchain is now 11 years old. It launched publicly on January 3rd, 2009, coincidentally my birthday.
Oh, nice. That's why you're blockchain. Marcus
And
Blockchain Howard.
in the 11 years that it's existed, blockchain, the technology, has never been hacked. What has been hacked is when people try to centralize the thing that was designed to be decentralized.
Okay.
So you see exchanges or people's individual computers. I read about, there was a controversy. This one guy was doing a live stream of how to trade crypto, and he had his private key in a text field on the screen. So since he was doing a live stream, he was broadcasting his screen. In the middle of his live stream, someone hacked his account and stole his Bitcoin.
Right.
They didn't hack the technology, the infrastructure.
Right.
They hacked his computer because he had his password saved in plain text on the screen.
Okay.
So that's the difference between, again, the internet being not encrypted and blockchain being encrypted.
Right.
Does that make sense?
It does kind of.
Okay, so
No, I think you're explaining it really well. It's more my mind that has trouble absorbing everything, right? I think you explained it really well, and I do get it. When do you think? And it's been 11 years. Where are we today compared to 11 years ago as far as immersion into the global monetary system, digital currency?
Right now, we're still stuck at banking and finance because blockchain evolved out of the housing crisis of 2008. Right. It launched in 2009 to address that issue. And so right now it's being used in the banking sector. JP Morgan and Chase, Bank of America, all of them, Amazon, IBM, all the biggest tech companies are getting into it to support alternate forms of finance and secure financial transactions. I personally believe that the gaming industry is how it goes mainstream, for the same reason that my daughter spent $10 of my money on virtual currency, because digital items and digital currency are part and parcel to the gaming industry. Even Super Mario Brothers 3, right? You collect 100 coins and you get an extra life.
Right.
That's a digital currency that becomes a digital item. The reason that blockchain is important is that if you're playing a video game, your experience is limited to the ecosystem of that game, right? If I stop playing this game or I lose this game, I can't take the coins or the lives or the mushroom or all that stuff to another place. It exists here solely.
Right.
If the blockchain is a network like the internet that connects different games, now you can take those digital assets from one game to the next.
Okay.
Imagine if you were playing Mario Kart with a NASCAR skin, right? Because you earn the skin in NASCAR, and because those two games share the same network, now you can transfer your digital assets from one game to the next.
Right.
Or if you have V-Bucks, and for whatever reason, Epic Games decides to stop supporting Fortnite.
Right.
You don't want all that money you spent in that game, your real money, to be lost forever, which happens all the time when developers shut down servers, right?
Sure.
If you played Skyrim or NBA or NCAA, like when they stopped doing that, whatever that was 10 years ago or however many years,
Right.
any money you spent in that game is lost forever. But if it's on the blockchain, it's tied to you digitally, and you can then transfer it either to another game or transfer it between players.
Okay.
If you decided you don't want to play NCAA anymore, but your son does, you just give it to your son because you own it in perpetuity. Like, really actually own it.
Right. And do you think right now that the financial institutions, the banking industry, are starting to understand it better themselves, and they're now, that's one of the reasons why they're getting in? And originally, and I don't know this, I'm at this again, and originally they didn't, because again, they control the monetary system, right? And to me, I kind of look like when you talk about energy and you talk about gas and oil, right? Gas and oil, for so long, they just basically owned transportation because you couldn't do anything until the battery-operated car came along. And now all of a sudden you're starting to see, okay, more and more people are buying battery-operated cars. And at some point, I, from what I understand anyway, and I could be off on this, but the oil, just oil reserves on this planet are only like 40 or 50 years left. So they're going to be depleted completely at some point anyway.
Right.
So you need to go to an alternative system. Do you think that the banking industry has wrapped their arms around this now and they're getting involved because they're like, they can see, the end of action? I don't know if we will actually need, regular currency like a $1 bill or $2 bill, because 1,000 years ago you traded in horses and right, like whatever it was. So I think we could get to that point, because I don't use regular cash hardly at all anymore. Everything is either through credit card or through an app, or it's all transferred just digitally or virtually. So do you think because you said originally, you said you don't know if we'll ever get to that point where we won't need currency itself. And again, my currency means nothing if I'm in China or if I'm in France or something like that. I think some European countries might accept U.S. currency, but there's other places that just won't accept it. You have to do currency transition.
Well, what's interesting is when Venezuela, I believe it was Venezuela, had the economy crash.
Right.
People were using Bitcoin, right, to buy Amazon coins. Amazon launched their digital currency back in 2013. Very few people know about that.
Yeah.
And then using the Amazon coins to buy supplies and then have it shipped to them.
Right.
Because the national currency was so devalued that they couldn't buy any goods.
Right.
So I think that's the strength of where digital currencies will go in the future. But it also depends and requires that you have access to the internet. Right. And everybody doesn't have access to the internet right now, or access to cell phones or just those devices you need to do digital transactions.
Right.
So I think people who are unbanked and don't have those devices will still need physical currency. Right. But I agree with you as well. If everything continues to go digital, there'll be more demand for it. And to your other question, I think the banking finance sector basically dismissed the validity and the potential of Bitcoin until it got to a point they couldn't ignore it anymore.
Right.
What I find ironic is the CEO of JP Morgan Chase, I think, made a public statement, this might have been 3 or 4 years ago, that if he caught any of his employees trading Bitcoin, he would fire them immediately because he thought it was a scam, a Ponzi scheme. You hear that from everyone.
Yeah, right.
But now JP Morgan Chase has its own cryptocurrency campus. I believe it's in Silicon Valley. Okay. They're actively investing in building out full teams. Right. They've got tons of patents. Some people argue maybe the entire time he was saying that Bitcoin and blockchain was crap, they were actually building their own technology.
Right.
IBM, I think, did $150 million in blockchain business last year. So the biggest companies know that you can't get away from this now. It's going to have the exact same impact on society and business and the technology industry that the internet had. It's inevitable. It's the evolution, right? Before we had the internet, you didn't need to have encryption on your laptop, or laptops didn't exist that long ago as a personal machine, or let's say your washing machine, your dryer, or your garage door, right? But now that the internet has made everything connected, you need to encrypt everything that wasn't designed to be encrypted. Right. And that's where blockchain comes in. There's a public and a private key. The public key is like your mailbox, right, at the front of your house. Okay. The private key is your front door key. So you use your public key to have people send you mail that you can go check, but only people with your private key can get into your house.
Okay.
And you use
unless you're on a stream and you post your
unless yes, and then it's like you basically make copies of your keys and distribute it across the neighborhood. But you use those 2 keys to sign every transaction, so you can authenticate that the things are valid.
Right.
And again, that has not existed before now. Cryptography existed. It's been used, World War II.
Right.
Cryptography existed. Loyalty programs have existed for years, but this specific combination of these things, cryptography, loyalty programs, decentralized nature, exists now only as of 11 years ago.
Right.
Yeah.
That's a pretty good explanation. I think there's 3 things I want to figure out what they all are together. And then what I want to know is, we're just talking about different currencies, right, in different nations. Is there going to be one? Is there going to be one universal global blockchain? So when we say blockchain, cryptocurrency, and Bitcoin, are they all one and the same? How do they differ?
That's another great question. So Bitcoin is a cryptocurrency, and Bitcoin is built on blockchain.
Okay.
Just like email is a communication app, and email runs on the internet. There are so many other examples and uses for the internet besides email. Right? But email was the first commercial use of the internet for the average person.
Right.
Bitcoin is the first commercial use of Bitcoin or blockchain for the average person.
Okay.
But think it is a payments transaction. Blockchain is made to secure transactions.
Okay.
So just like you can have a payments transaction, getting your license can be a transaction. Winning a tournament, signing up for a tournament, those are all different transactions. They can be secured on the blockchain. Just like you had the issue, I don't know if you saw, it was a couple of weeks ago, the 9-year-old, I think it was in Australia or somewhere, South America, was playing with his dad on Fortnite, and then he got banned.
Okay.
He got banned because he was able to play without having the verification he was 13 in that particular tournament.
Okay.
If the registration was verified on the blockchain, his age would be verified. He would never have been able to play in that opportunity.
Sure.
So imagine that, like for playing tournaments, for gambling, right? As we see esports grow to mimic the sports industry, traditional sports industry, sports betting is going to be esports betting.
Right.
How do you keep kids under 18 from betting in esports? You may have seen that there's a scandal about trading skins and gambling on Steam a few years back because there was no system in place to make sure that minors weren't engaging in that activity. Blockchain can do that.
Wow. So you see, is the implementation happening right now? And are like the big publishers getting involved? Like, are your Valves and your Riots and your Epics, are they all getting involved in that and saying, yeah, we need to get on board with blockchain?
No,
not yet.
I know Ubisoft is.
Okay.
They've been in this space about 2 or 3 years trying to research and develop and implement it, but it's Clayton Christensen, I believe, coined the term the innovator's dilemma, where publicly traded companies can't afford to invest in innovation until it gets to a critical mass where it's worth their money, right? Because they have to get regular returns on a quarterly basis.
Right.
So they can't invest heavily in like risky things.
Right.
So until it's mass adoption, it's not worth their time.
Right.
Which is why you see like all the innovation in the gaming space really coming from indie studios, right? The entire battle royale genre is a result. It's popularized by Fortnite, but was based on PUBG. PUBG is from an indie studio in South Korea called Bluehole Studios.
Yep.
Now, technically, theirs is a mod of another indie game, but had it not been the indie game that created the mod that inspired PUBG, that inspired Fortnite, the rest is history. Right? The same thing for League of Legends, which started as an indie game. Rocket League was created by an indie team.
Right.
So you'll see, and I believe you'll see the majority of the innovation in blockchain gaming coming from indie studios and then being either acquired by major studios or getting to a critical mass point where now the major publishers have to get involved.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And where do you personally fit into all that? And is there, when we talk about monetizing things, like again, there's a cash value to something, but are you good with getting compensated through blockchain and Bitcoin now? And where can we use that?
That's one of the other reasons I think that the gaming industry is how blockchain will go mainstream. The happy path for mainstream adoption is that you have an everyday use case in a digital environment, right? Right now, the majority of people who have Bitcoin have either mined it, right, using their computers to generate it, or have traded it. That's the only 2 major activities for mainstream America.
Right.
And I'm not doing that actively. You're not doing that actively. Right. But No one out here is probably doing that actively. They are doing is playing video games on a daily basis.
Right.
So if you can integrate blockchain and cryptocurrency into video games, there are 2.7 billion gamers worldwide. That's 1 in every 3 people who are now using blockchain.
Yeah.
Right. So what I do now is I'm actually on the advisory board for Game Credits. They're the world's first gaming cryptocurrency, created in 2014.
Okay.
They are building infrastructure so that game developers can integrate this Game Credits infrastructure and cryptocurrency into their games. So when you get a V-Bucks, hypothetically, if it was on Game Credits, you as an end user would see it as V-Bucks, but when you send it to someone else, in their system it would transfer to Game Credits and then transfer back to V-Bucks on the other side, to the other user, to me.
Okay.
Right.
Okay. So did you? And so I understand what you're saying, and I asked you like 3 questions there. But do you see a universal? Will it be a universal currency, or will it be blockchain? Will be the universal method, like you said? But the email, you can have different email addresses or the email system. Will we have like all these different companies will have their own cryptocurrency or their own Bitcoin, but it will all be done through blockchain? Like
that's happening today, right now. Exactly what you described. So blockchain was the first. Or Bitcoin was the first use of blockchain, and it was open source code. If you ever heard about programming, open source means that anybody can see exactly how the code works, and anybody can make their own copy of it. It's called forking the code.
Okay.
When they fork the code, that's how Ethereum was created, which is what most blockchain games are based off of. Litecoin, Purecoin, all these other coins, right, were originally based off of the blockchain code. I see long term, you'll have some major generic coins that function kind of like the US dollar, right, Bitcoin, but you will also have different cryptocurrencies representing different communities and different business ecosystems. For example, the United States is looking into its own virtual currency called the USDT, US dollar, I don't know what the T stands for off the top of my head, I can't remember it. But imagine each country having its own cryptocurrency and being able to exchange that just like you can fiat to dollars to euros.
Yep.
And each business, which most of them are already using loyalty programs, evolving it into a cryptocurrency as another level of consumer engagement and brand loyalty.
Okay.
So Bitcoin will probably be used across the board for many of those companies, but they will also have their own coin.
Okay. Man, you're in this every day, man. So like, but what you're talking to me right now, I feel like I got to shake the cobwebs. I got, it's a lot.
It's a lot.
It's a lot. And so again, we're talking about educating people about gaming and esports. Educating about like, gaming and esports to me seems a little bit easier to wrap my head around because I can see it. I almost feel like with blockchain and with crypto that you need like to have a board up and kind of go through the process of seeing it visually. Because when you're talking about it, I kind of have an image, but then you need to go through that process of those transactions. And we're living in this world today. Like you said, there are places that you can do this. And my kids will probably have it'll probably be very easy for them to adopt and adapt to it because they actually don't really have that much cash. Unless my kid loses a tooth and I put $10, the tooth fairy puts $10 under his pillow or something, right? That's only, otherwise they don't really care. But they spend a lot of money online, you know? So everything for them is digital.
Yeah.
So for them, I don't think it's going to be that big a deal because it'll be easy to adopt because they're already doing it as part of the system that they're in.
Well, I think the important part is, right, nobody really knows how the internet works unless you build internet networks.
Right.
Or internet is short for network, but interconnected network. But it doesn't matter how it works as long as it does work.
It's a great point.
And my goal for blockchain gaming is that at the end of the day, it's just another form of gaming. Right. You don't even know that the blockchain is happening in the background. Just like you don't understand how, the packets are being sent from this recording to wherever it's going to be broadcast later, right? As long as it works, who cares how it works?
It's a great point, man, because I every once in a while I'll go back to like a phone. You know, the phone when I was growing up, you actually had a phone that you picked up and the phone was sitting there and it had a cord into it and then it went into the phone and that phone went into the wall, the cord went into the wall. So you just figured that there was wires that went. But nowadays I pick up my cell phone and you and I can talk to somebody in Malaysia right now, like real time. How does that happen? Like I don't know how that happens, right?
It doesn't matter.
But I still use my cell phone every day, and I still make the phone call. I don't need to know exactly how it works. It is fascinating to me, though.
Yeah.
Like, I love to get down to it. Is it bouncing up the satellite? Is it's the sound waves or whatever? And it's the same thing with blockchain. I want to understand a little bit better, but I really, and I thank you for saying that because it really helps me say, you know what, I don't need to figure out blockchain, crypto, Bitcoin, just understand how it works for me.
And I'm working on a course, actually, it's called, you may have seen me posted on LinkedIn, called Blockchain in Gaming and Esports, which provides like an intro primer to what blockchain is and what it's good for, what it's not good for, and then addresses the gaming industry, if you're unfamiliar with gaming, the difference between gaming and esports, because they're two sides of the same coin,
Yeah.
and then how blockchain the issues in the gaming industry and esports, and then how blockchain can address some of those issues in gaming and esports.
Yeah.
And again, fraud is one thing. Being able to create efficient payment solutions. If you look at Steam, I think when game developers are trying to get their money out after they have sold a game, it's like 30 to 60 days before that money is deposited into their account.
Right.
Maybe that's changed recently, but in a lot of ecosystems like that around gaming, Google Play Store, et cetera, developers can't immediately get their money because the process is bloated.
Right.
And blockchain allows you to kind of collapse all of that infrastructure, that hierarchy, so that payments can be quicker, more convenient.
Right.
Yeah.
And so you're creating that's going to be an online course or an online, what did you say that was?
An online course. I'm probably going to start leaking some of it on LinkedIn.
Okay.
Pieces of it here at a time, like micro content, 60 seconds at a time. And then the goal, once I get it all done this year, I've got a school. I've got a finalized contract, so I can't mention it specifically, but they're a major school that we're going to be partnering with to deploy that course on their campus in the spring. And then we're going to scale that course around the country.
And when you say we're going to scale, who's where?
So me, game credits, and then we may partner with that school as a publishing partner. We may not. We're still working out those details over the next couple of weeks.
Did you mention the name of your company?
Project MQ.
Project MQ.
Yeah. So the MQ stands for Metacube. The legal company name is Metacube Interactive. It used to be called Metagamer, but about 4 years ago, right after we filed the company, the legal registration for the company, we got a cease and desist from LA because there was another company called Metagamers. And we were metagamer.tv.
Okay.
And they were mostly a social media brand, a YouTube channel. They didn't actually operate as a full business, but they could argue that their brand existed first, and it created brand confusion.
Okay.
Because they reviewed like cell phones and laptops and sometimes games.
Right.
So our legal counsel said that we could fight it, but it was going to be expensive and not really worth our time. We switched it to Metacube. We weren't sure if we were going to have that same issue, so we just called it Project MQ, and it's been that way for 5 years.
Right. Yeah, sometimes, man, just like, whatever they say, don't beat them, join them kind of thing. You didn't really join them, but that's a good decision probably at that point right now because you hadn't built up any brand equity yourselves at that point.
Yeah, so it didn't matter.
So amazing stuff, man. You're doing some really cool stuff, and I really appreciate you sharing. What else do you have that's going on? Like right now, obviously the Super Bowl's coming up. Mm-hmm. Maybe, I mean, that's the other thing, right? That's going to be a little bit of let's say a risk. I mean, everything's a risk, but a challenge because you've got to prepare and be ready for the Super Bowl. But right now, we're not even sure what's going to happen with the NFL season yet, right? Mm-hmm. At least we'll know, like August.
Yeah.
We'll know if the season's actually happening. But at this point right now, everything you're doing is planning, but you haven't gone full-fledged into it and committed 100% because February could roll around and, we might find out in September that the NFL has to wait for a year again before they start.
Yeah, it's a tough place to be. We have to prepare just enough, and mostly I'm having early conversations to say, hey, assuming that the season comes back, there should still be a Super Bowl in February, and this is what we're planning on doing, assuming those two things happen. Yeah. Are you interested in getting involved? Yeah. And just getting kind of LOIs and early commitments, and then once we hear for sure that the season and the Super Bowl is happening, go back and start dialing into that details. Of
okay, so the Super Bowl, and you said a bunch of other things you're working on. You're working on that program with the university. You're doing this stuff with the blockchain. Is there anything that we didn't cover that you're doing like right now, or that's on the table for right now? Black Lives Matter. We talked about some of this stuff. Are you doing anything there, charity driven, just cause related along those lines as well?
Right now, just mostly driving the conversation. And I don't believe that most people are racist. I believe very few people are racist, but I believe that this issue is difficult to discuss. One, because it's hard to see it if you didn't experience it first.
Right.
And then two, it's just taboo as a whole. And three, most of the history about these difficult conversations has been basically whitewashed, right? I shared something the other day where people were saying that depending on the books you read in school, that slaves were happy and that they were reclassified as workers, and things that don't really accurately communicate to black and non-black communities what actually happened.
Right.
George Washington didn't have wooden teeth; he had slaves' teeth. Right. Things of that nature. People who,
what?
Yeah, people used to say that he had wooden teeth. No, he had slaves' teeth.
Right.
Things like that.
Wait, I don't even get that. Like you meet like a slave lost their teeth,
and then he had dentures made from slaves' teeth.
What?
Yeah, so
I didn't know that.
Stuff like that.
Wow.
Juneteenth that just happened yesterday.
Yeah.
The president tweeted that he made it famous and no one knew about it. everyone I know in my community has been celebrating that for as long as I can remember. And it's been celebrated. Yesterday was 155 years. Right. But there are also some black people who weren't celebrating it. And surely, non-black communities most of them probably didn't know about it because it wasn't well taught in school.
Yeah, I was talking to Allie Young about it, and Allie was, behind, some of what's going on with Juneteenth, like we talked about with Todd Harris and with Ryan. What's Ryan's last name again? Ryan Johnson.
Ryan Johnson, yeah.
And she was saying she really wasn't aware of Juneteenth. I wasn't aware of it, but I certainly wouldn't give Trump credit for being one of the ones that made me aware of it.
Right,
it wasn't him. It was Allie and it was Ryan, and it was So I don't know. That's a whole nother
But what he did do was he created this teachable moment where now we can have a discussion around it. So I give him credit for that.
We need a lot, and that's what I like, and having these discussions, because that's what's important, right? Mm-hmm. We need to have the discussions. Some people I think to get into, and whether it's religion or politics or race or whatever, they don't want to get into that conversation because they already have their opinions, right?
Right.
But for people that want to make a change in the world, that want to make a difference in the world, we need to open up these lines of communication and discuss things so that we can then figure things out. Because if you don't discuss it and you just push it under the carpet, nothing gets figured out. So I think it's very important, the discussion we're having today. I really think that everything that happened for Juneteenth, because I do see that now. I see Juneteenth. I'm aware of it now, and I wasn't 3 weeks ago. I can see that becoming a national holiday or something that we'll celebrate on a larger scale. Not like St. Patrick's Day, but you know what I'm saying? You know?
Just to observe it, right? If anything else, just to spend time learning more about the black community, right? If you're not from the black community, or if you're from the black community, it's a time for really understanding and reflecting so that we can build more value as a country, right? I have to share this link to you or this image. I probably post it when I get back home. But diverse-led teams generate 75% more revenue than non-diverse teams.
Oh, wow, that's amazing. I had no idea.
It's a good idea socially, a good thing to do personally, but it's also just a really good business decision to support diversity.
Yeah.
And then you look at esports, Call of Duty is probably one of the worst examples. I don't remember seeing anyone of color, in black, or I think there's some Hispanic professional players, but no one black at the high professional level there. And there's so many layers to that, right? Call of Duty, again, the multiplayer for nearly 20 years has allowed for racial harassment, in the multiplayer from the chat. And, PC gaming is an economic barrier for the black community. You have to have $2,000 or so in order to have a decent rig. Right. Not just to play, but be competitive, right? Like a high-quality mouse that has the precision and the high-quality headphones to hear the footsteps. Yeah. If you don't have that, you might be able to play, but you won't be competitive enough to go pro.
Right.
Or the time and the facilities to go train on a regular basis, just like you would if you were playing rec league basketball or soccer or football. Yeah. So all of those things collectively create this situation where now there's no representation at the professional level. And it's good business decision for the Activision and Call of Duty team to support that, because probably 20% of their audience, based on the ESPN report from 2017, are African American. They're fans and are hardcore fans. So why would you ignore 20% of your market, which the black community also has the highest spending power out of any demographic here in the U.S. So you just drive more awareness, you drive more gamers, and you drive more dollars into your company. Why wouldn't you do that?
Yeah, and I see, we were talking about access earlier, that so much of it is about the access, like you were just saying. Yeah. You've got to have access to that equipment, which gives you a fair shake to be able to play. But I also see gaming being one of those areas that really, gaming and esports, being one of those areas that can really make a difference. Because when you look at traditional pro sports and whatever, with Colin Kaepernick, when he was taking a knee, I was like, when you look at Jesse Owens back in the day, you know what I mean? That is an opportunity to make a statement. Yeah. To make a statement. And I think when you look at professional sports, you've got such a crossover of so many different races, right?
Yeah.
So that needs to start happening more at the professional level in gaming, because there is a cross-representation. That's one of the things you say about gaming is anybody, anywhere can do it, right? Doesn't matter your color of skin, doesn't matter your nationality, doesn't matter if you're handicapped, doesn't matter your gender. None of that matters.
None of that matters.
Anybody can game.
Yeah, I always say to my folks and everyone else that I believe that gaming is a universal language. It transcends gender, it transcends age, it transcends borders. You could play with somebody, in Australia. It's a great connector. It's the common denominator. And I think the bigger opportunity there is to see the console and the mobile gaming ecosystems go mainstream, get the support that the PC gaming segment of esports is getting, because those are more accessible. Instead of $2,000 for a high-end rig, you can get a gaming console for $200, right? You know, a used one from the pawn shop. It still plays, you know, if you have decent internet, then you're good. And then mobile, you know, you may already have a mobile device. You don't have to pay for anything. Some of those, it's like $80 a month. It's bundled into your phone bill. Right? So it's about evolving these ecosystems, and like you said earlier, increasing access. And one of the other great things I like about Atlanta's doing so many things well, is they had that partnership with the Forever Young Foundation, Steve Young and Jerry Rice, where they put that esports facility in there.
That was awesome, yeah.
They put one here, we're in Miami, in Miami, and then the goal is for them to follow the NFL market for Super Bowl. So hopefully, if everything goes well, we'll see one in Tampa Bay next February. So those are nonprofit facilities that are designed to increase access, not necessarily like focus on profit. And not that there isn't value in profit. You know, we're a capitalist society. That's an incentive for one incentive to do things. But that particular part of the ecosystem helps grow the rest of it.
Right, man, it's great. It's awesome. You got anything else? Well, I mean, I know we could talk for a while, but I mean, we hit on some really key points, I think.
Definitely, for sure. But there's always opportunities in the future for us to continue conversations. Just really excited to work with you all and your team about what we're planning for next year, and really let that be kind of the catalyst for introducing not only, you know, the minority community to the STEAM opportunities in esports, but really educating their parents and educating brands. Because I don't think that, you know, Fortnite or Apex Legends or Call of Duty necessarily works best for every small business. You know, the mom and pop shop down the street, or the local bike shop, or a real estate developer. Fortnite doesn't make sense for their business, but indie games are so diverse and niche focus that I know right now there are real estate games and competitive biking games made by independent game developers that would be perfect to do local tournaments in their community for their customers. So I want to see more of that, and that's one of our other goals for this event, is to get the entire community invested into gaming and esports, the same way, again, that Atlanta does.
Yeah, no, and I think bringing in those independent developers that you're talking about, and those games, I didn't know about those games. So I think that is a great way for a brand to get activated into something that they're probably a little bit more familiar with.
Right,
and that they understand. And kind of to your point, and we can end on that, is the way that we're communicating today continues to evolve, just like currency that we were talking about. So my kids spend very little time even on their cell phone communicating. A lot of it's mobile gaming, and they will communicate through it, but my kids, most of their communication is through the games, through their Xbox. Because they're on their Xbox so often, and so they don't go to their phone. They just communicate directly through their Xbox. And I think I've used this example a number of times, but like 2 years ago, this is when it blew me away, because I again grew up with that phone where it had the dial and, you know, the cord and everything else. My son was playing Fortnite. It was the summer, and I was like, "Who are you playing with?" He's like, "Oh, they were in a squad." And he's like, "Oh, Caden." Okay, Caden lives in Rio Vista. It's like 10 miles away. Luke lives in Victoria Park, which is 5 miles away. I'm like, and he's like, and I'm like, "Who else?" He said, "Omri." I said, "Omri's in Israel right now." He's like, "Yeah, so what?" And I'm like, "Wait a second, you're just talking to Omri like on your headset. Like, you didn't even have to call him on your phone. He's communicating through the Xbox in real time like that around the globe."
Yeah, I saw a funny joke right after COVID started, the quarantine for COVID started, where people were saying that businesses were saying instead of using like Skype and Zoom, that they would just use Fortnite, and Fortnite is a chat server that you occasionally shoot the other people in, right? Because it's like you said, real-time communication. It's how people socialize in today's day, in the future of engagement and communication.
Yeah, well, and then to your point, and where my mind was after you just said that about the real estate game and those. So now, if you have that real estate community, somebody's playing the real estate game, somebody's playing that biking game, and you have the community that's all conversing there in the game. What a great place for a brand to be landing, right?
Right.
Because now you have your community talking right there.
Right. The game has basically vetted the target audience for you, right? So you don't have to guess as to whether or not that they're involved in that.
Yeah, I can't see if you host those panels. Like, I can't see like somebody in the audience that's working at company X not going, "Oh my God," you know. My wife does some work with Compass, like a real estate company that's not invested right now. Where do we go in? And they go to this and they see this real estate game. Oh my God, like you said, you completely vetted the community already.
Yeah, have you heard about Farming Simulator?
Yeah.
So, you know, John Deere, I don't know if we mentioned that earlier.
No, I didn't. We didn't, either one of us. But now John Deere, like, I love it. Go ahead.
So John Deere invested in this indie studio in Europe to create the esports tournament for Farming Simulator. It's competitive farming.
Yeah.
You would never expect that, and you also wouldn't see that from like an EA or, if maybe they're publishing it, but they would never develop that game because it's so niche focused, right? Now that it's popular, maybe they're behind it. But in that game, you play with John Deere, models, like actual tractors, right? And so that gives them that brand exposure to their target audience. Yeah.
And it's very authentic.
Yeah.
It's very authentic. That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming over, man.
Yeah, thanks for the invite.
Yeah,
appreciate it.
Good stuff, man.
Yeah.
I'd like to thank Marcus for sharing his time, experience, and knowledge with us today. This conversation was enlightening and a real education for me. I continue to try to wrap my arms around the implementation of blockchain, cryptocurrency, Bitcoin technology, and when it's going to reach what seems to be an inevitable tipping point. Marcus shed light on what to me is a somewhat complex medium of exchange, and he did an amazing job of expressing how it can impact the gaming industry. The blockchain name fits well. You can listen to Blockchain Again now. You can also find timestamp segments of the show, links to his social pages, and more information about his projects and media in the show notes. If you enjoyed our discussion, please let us know. Continue the conversation with me across all social platforms and become a member of the Ultimate Gamer community today by subscribing at ultimategamer.com. We release a new show every day of the week, Monday through Friday, so be the first to join us for some outstanding upcoming guests and or dive back into the library of previous All About the Game pods to hear from some of the most brilliant minds in the space. Experts like CEO of UDA Global Group, Emil Bodenstein, professional NFL long snapper and Twitch streamer, Tabor Pepper, and CEO of Ghost Punch, Rick Daniels, just to name a few. You can find all these episodes and more on the Ultimate Gamer website, on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Stitcher, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your pods. And finally, please like, rate, and review the show. It helps us reach the gaming community to spread the word and share the wisdom of our guests, as well as some of the most thought-provoking stories in the industry. Shout out, as always, to the Ultimate Gamer. I look forward to being with you on the next All About the Game podcast.